Ray?
Gavin,
What are you laughing at?
part 2. I'm laughing at Ray.
Welcome back, my man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's brilliant to have you back in the studio. And we had such a deep and insightful conversation first time around.
Indeed.
And I think we both left the conversation realizing the depth in which we navigated and found through our words and energy on that episode. But I feel we both also left knowing that there was so much more.
And it's been a minute. It's about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
6 months now.
Yeah. April last time.
Time. Yeah. It's easy for the two of us to get into depth. And some of the feedback that I had received, which was surprising, mostly good. The majority of the feedback was phenomenal. People were just so taken with, I think, with the natural pace and progression of how we sort of spoke about our stories, both how we met, our pasts, perhaps how we each got here to this conversation. And I was moved by the outreach. Some people I haven't heard from in 30 years. We're talking secondary school or high school for my American friends. That was one of the things that people commented on was, when did you get so good at Irish? And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, you're talking in kilometers. You're talking, like phrases.
You spent enough time here.
Yes, I have spent enough time here talking to some cab drivers. My wife and I, at this stage, we have nearly 100 trips over here.
Wow.
Yeah. Combined.
Yeah.
Combined, not each.
Yes.
But still, I mean, people are asking me, do I have my Irish citizenship yet? Do I own land here yet? Things like that. And look, I mean, we come here for deep work. We've been shown very gracefully how to perhaps facilitate deep work. And we come here specifically on often occasion, multiple times a year, to offer to people. As a teacher once said to me, we offer the plate of fruit. If people take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't. And you just asked me a question right before we went on camera today. You had asked me, percentage-wise, not that this ever matters, but percentage-wise, what number of people are coming back for next year's retreat that we've just come off of in October, and we're at 90% already rebooked. And that really is a measure for us what's next, because I don't really know what's next. But as you said to me, we grabbed a coffee this morning, and you said to me, you kind of sampling the field, taking the temperature, seeing, although that wasn't completely the intent, because that's how I was led into this work from corporate. That's how I was led full time into this work away from corporate. Should corporate come calling back for consultancy, it's interesting the way that the world comes full circle, even in this conversation. It's sort of like you're sort of waiting for a signal from the field to kind of show you, at least I've learned, the more present you become in your life, the more that you not only can echo to the field what you'd like to see, you then can listen from the field to receive back either what it is you've created or go, I don't really like that. I'd like to change that a little bit. So yeah, we've come over here somewhere in the neighborhood, combined, somewhere in the neighborhood 70 times we've been over here. And mostly driven by a desire to serve. And we've found a beautiful spot to do that. a location in Wexford, and it allows us to do this work on a very deep level. And so it also allows us to meet incredible beings like yourself. So we keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the part of trusting that you will be given the signs and the signals to move forward towards. However, for many of us, me included, we're often resistant to these signs and signals, at least at the beginning, because it means change, it means challenge, it requires struggle. And we prefer to, stay where we are because it's so familiar and predictable and we feel safe in this place. For you, what was the defining moment, or what are the defining moments within that process that allows you to lean towards the signs, the signals, and to trust that you're being shown the way instead of believing that you need to figure it out along the way?
That's an interesting posit, because I believe that I've been being led, to steal a phrase from the Irish, from the time I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I believe, honestly, I remember being very young and just looking for signs, looking for the magic, knowing that it's there, just looking for the echo back, not realizing that I was the signal that was bouncing the echo off the field to be returned to me as a boomerang. Perhaps not realizing, maybe perhaps realizing more than I knew, but maybe at a more subconscious level at the time when I was young.
Can you give us an example of moments like this in your earlier years?
I remember clearly moments of like playing with cousins and knowing what they were thinking, and then engaging them in a game like, I bet I could tell you what color that you're thinking of. And then surprising myself that I was right like 7 out of 10 times. And I'm going, that can't just be a coincidence. But I think that family members who were lovingly attempting to guide me in the world were saying, oh, that's just, coincidence or whatever. And it's not that they were disengaging me from my intuition. They were doing what they were taught. To help guide and send me in a direction that would lead me to become a man, and give me foundation to support a family eventually. And so I think they were doing their job, but I think from an early age I really knew that my intuition was guiding me. I would know things before they would come to fruition, and it wasn't that I was predicting the future. I'm learning. I was present in the moment. So I was feeling and sensing the field at a very profound level. And I didn't really learn to accept how sensitive I was to that until my late 30s. I'm in my late 40s now. So only the last decade have I really begun to understand just how sensitive I am to those things.
Sensitivity is often deemed as a weakness, isn't it?
Yeah. You were asking me a question, I think, earlier about knowing to see the signs. And you mentioned that there's suffering involved in being present in what is rather than and letting it guide us in the unknown. I think we believe that we have to suffer in that, because we've been taught to plan for, budget for, know for. And it's in the knowing that we feel safe, right? So there's this thing in the mind called the ego, right? And the ego has a positive and a negative aspect, the shadow self, if you will, to it, that is sort of driven by what we would call, I guess, the unconscious mind. And so I believe, and science, I believe, is beginning to prove that 90% or more of what we experience is driven by the unconscious mind. And ironically, all these distractions, specifically cell phones, social media, television, radio, podcasts, can be distractions. But like anything, if used in the proper way, if you're tuning into a podcast not to distract, but actually to self-realize or self-grow, the impact that will have versus doing so to tune out because you just can't deal with life anymore. Well, it's either one of those two things. The intention behind it is going to drive what I believe is the final outcome. Mm-hmm. But I think I have learned that the more present I can become in moments, and I'm still very much in practice, the easier it becomes to sense the field and to flow with it rather than resist and create the very conflict that you were mentioning earlier.
Mm-hmm. It's a massive challenge in my own life as well. I mean, I've been with you for a year now, and
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, a lot has changed in the way that I see myself and I see the world and I experience things.
What's the number one? What'd you say? Do you think
the power of being instead of doing?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, and relinquishing control and allowing higher intelligence to flow through instead of me believing that I'm the doer.
How do you catch it, and how do you pivot when you see it, right? Because there's got to be a way to step into what we would call observer, mm-hmm. right? And so if you've noticed that that's the biggest thing for you over the last little while, over the last 12 months or so, when you catch yourself doing it, what do you employ to kind of get yourself out of that space?
I go to the forest.
You go to the forest.
And I'll sit and I'll be with whatever it is. And through that being comes eventually, it's not a flick of the switch moment.
Yeah.
When you sit and you be, you're driven to do, and we close our eyes and all those thoughts start to appear of, I've got to do this, or I wonder what that meant yesterday. That bill's coming up, I need to get that sorted. What did he mean yesterday when he said this to me? All these distractions, which, as you mentioned, we use to distract these. We use these thoughts to distract ourselves from ourselves. And then once you realize that, then something seems to shift. And I'll allow myself at least 30 minutes to sit so that I can process all the bullshit first and get down to the truth. And I've found myself in situations where I've had a challenge and a struggle that I've been presented with in life, and I would bring that intention with me to the forest and sit there with it for long enough until I come to a sense of awareness as to the message behind the problem or the pain. So that's been a practice, and it doesn't always work though. I get to the forest sometimes and it's just all noise and chaos, and I'm going, well, but what do? We keep showing up. So
it's funny because the distraction of life can be the forest. Mm-hmm. The forest can be the forest. Your meditation can be the forest. They say, though, that returning to nature returns us to our own nature, mm-hmm. who and what we actually are, rather than what we have come to believe what we are. Mm-hmm. A bill payer, a provider, a housekeeper, a child rearer, mm-hmm. Parent, guardian, protector, all those things, an employee, whatever the case may be, an entrepreneur. Gone seem to be the days of just sitting and going, I wonder what my next thought's going to be. It has been said to me, actually by a yogi once said to me, in all my lifetimes, that alone struck me. I was like, wait, hang on, what? But in all my lifetimes, I've never been able to still my mind in meditation. And this is supposedly a self-realized yogi. In all my lifetimes, I've never been able to still my mind. That's complete bullshit, they said. the yogis actually cursed and said it's complete bullshit. It's not the truth.
What's not the truth?
That you are able to still your mind in meditation.
Okay.
In all my lifetimes, they said, I've never been able to still my mind in meditation, never once. The only thing that brings me close to it is asking the question, I wonder what my next thought's going to be. You can just sit with that for a moment and see what it actually does in your system. It actually does have quite an effect.
And that is a thought in itself.
And that's a thought in itself. You're right. Like, well, it's a thought with an echo.
Yeah.
Like sort of being in a canyon, like the Grand Canyon, and just like shouting and hearing your own voice come back.
Yeah.
We were talking off camera before about if you were to close your eyes and say your own name to yourself inside your own mind, who's speaking? Like even in the stillness of that, it's almost uncomfortable for a moment not to speak, because as humans, we're trained to be, as you said, doing rather than being.
Well, someone will say, I'm speaking.
I'm speaking.
Who's I'm?
Who's I'm? Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
How deep down that rabbit hole do we go?
How deep do you want to, exactly. How deep do you want to go down that hole? And as you said earlier, and quite correctly so, it scares a lot of people to get quiet, because we've been trained to be distracted, especially in the world of social media and these devices, these gadgets that we can get into our hands and fidget with all the time. That, as we're now learning, have been programmed to keep us further in that programming, sort of in the matrix, so to speak. So,
and moving further down the rabbit hole, or getting into deeper depth, will also present you with a lot of darkness.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if I've learned, anyway, the more present that I become, if I go back and I watch a movie like The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland, all the way leading up to The Matrix again, the more present I become, the more the powerful metaphors of those messages come forward. Very much like the Bible. You know, the Bible, although there is also factual events that are going on there in Scripture, the metaphors, the more present you become in your life, the metaphors in these scriptures, in these movies, in these things become more self-evident of who is writing this, who is watching this, what is watching this, what is experiencing this. And I think the distractions of life pull us away from that. And I think that's the game. The game is to neutralize the distractions long enough to realize we've been distracted, to then ask, wait, who am I? What am I doing here? What's the purpose of my life? This gift of oxygen that I've been given. I was once asked, another yogi, my wife actually asked me this question because she was present with a yogi. We've been around yogis a lot, but like realized, you know, like to whatever degree, realized beings and self-realized beings. And I've been told that a self-realized being will never tell you that they're enlightened unless they want to get rid of you. They'll only ever tell you that they're an enlightened being if they literally want to be left alone. Oh, you're enlightened. On my way I go. And the enlightened yogi is like, thank God. I got my peace and quiet again. Or at least I'm left here alone with my thoughts in the chaos of the forest. But my wife said once she was at a retreat herself, and so happened that this yogi happened to be on site. They weren't with the group. They just happened to be at the same location. And so they entered the space, and the leaders of the retreat knew this person, and they asked him to speak for a moment. And the person said, I've got a question for the group. What do you suppose is the point of the breath? And one of the two retreat leaders is a doctor and responded, you know, about oxygenating the blood and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And he said, that's not wrong. but the point of the breath is service. And there was just like a dead silence in the room, my wife said. She said it was deafening. Like, because that might have so many meanings to so many different people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about the word service, like what do you think the word service means?
To give back, to give to others, to offer your love, your light to those who are potentially in the darkness, and also to offer it back to yourself.
Sure. I haven't even come to a definition of what the word means for me.
Thanks, Ray. I was just going to correct me.
I was just curious.
Actually, you know.
I was just curious what you thought. I mean, honestly, the best one that I've come up with so far is to give thanks.
Mm. Well, when you say the breath, the purpose of the breath is service, the breath is within this vessel.
Yeah.
That holds the soul.
Yeah.
So that we are
that
here.
holds the soul. Oh man, how many rabbit holes do you want to go down today? Okay.
So the purpose of this vessel
Uh-huh.
is to be of service, but that we've been brought here to be of service to God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're here. That service could be, as you said, it could mean many different things to many
Sure.
different people, and everyone here is playing different roles.
Sure. I mean,
And the role that you're playing is potentially to become a role for someone else, to show them the way or to guide them in certain directions through your own karmic, divine.
there's another rabbit hole. Karma.
Through your own divine karmic pattern.
Yeah. It's funny because I lovingly, and I mean this lovingly, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I tease now that I'm a recovering Catholic, not because it's a joke, the religion, but the joke is that in some cases, the way it is delivered, the medium through which religion is often delivered, at least when I was growing up in the 80s, late 70s and 80s and 90s, it was often delivered with fear, and I'm like, that's very confusing for especially a young man, sensitive, I learned later how sensitive I was, but a young sensitive guy or young man or boy, when God's love is delivered with fear. It's like, hang on, what? I don't quite understand that messaging. And yet I'm told not to question it. And then I learn and discover that I'm an intuitive, and that having insights about what others would call the future is heresy, and that I shouldn't be participating. So hang on, God's love is delivered with fear, and my intuition is heresy, but it's who I am. So I am a heretic? I deserve to be punished. I'm no good. And then you go down this entire path of, in my case, moving towards a professional career in the corporate world, as a good Catholic that provides for his family, and away from the truth of who I am, my intuition, and my ability to guide and direct people to their own. That's all I ever think lately. That's all I ever think that I am in this work. You said before, you and I have been working together for a year. My only role is to mirror back to you who and what you believe you are. And in my breath, that is service. That is me giving thanks for helping someone else still their distractions long enough to figure out a little bit more who they are. And as we talked off camera this morning, sometimes that involves me going back and working on a corporate project because I happen to be one of a handful of people who understand the material, and I'm being asked to come back as a subject matter expert in a field of analysis. It's like, wait, that's very different than leading corporate retreats, but is it? If I'm saying thank you and the field is echoing back, this is what we'd like you to do today, how can I say no to the creator?
Yeah, we're exactly where we need to be.
We're exactly where we need to be.
Not where we want to be.
Right.
At times,
well,
yeah.
Not always, right?
Yes.
The more still we become, though, I believe the more we get to create that field. But what I was going to say was, I know that I just kind of dropped that, moved on, but Catholicism didn't teach karma. Catholicism doesn't teach multiple lifetimes. After all these trips over to Ireland, but also overseas to other places and places that I've seen and been, and retreats that we've led, people that I've met, yogis that I've met, sages, saints, gurus. I mean, literally, I've met some incredible beings who would then say, so have I, because they're the mirror. They want you to realize your greatness and how beautiful and incredible you are, and how much you have to offer the world in every breath that you take, because they've gotten to the place of realizing to some degree, so am I. But anyway, so Catholicism didn't teach a lot of what I've had to learn. Some of what I had to learn is that there is no, try not to give any props to any particular companies, but there is no particular true religion. There's only one true religion, right? And that religion is love, hence the sweatshirt, the jumper that I'm wearing today, right? So intentional, because true is what's true to you. Like, I can't tell you what your truth is. I could tell you what the truth is of a situation, but that's my truth in any particular given moment, which is subject to change. That's called absolute truth, as I've come to understand it. Ultimate truth is unchangeable despite our belief in it. For example, the archangels exist. That's an ultimate truth. Doesn't matter what I believe. If I believe that they don't exist, it doesn't change the fact that they do. They exist on a frequency and a resonance level that maybe a human doesn't understand. But humans don't realize that you're Hueman. You're just a different hue, just a different color of the spectrum right now in this temporaneous reality that you're in. And that temporaneous reality is going to end. There's nothing that you can point to in this room, I don't think, that is not going to be here, that will be here for eternity. Eventually, everything must head towards its expiration date. I actually know another yogi who actually is capable of seeing everyone's expiration date in their field when they come into contact with them. Could you imagine being a 6-year-old and knowing when Mr. O'Brien's going to pass away? Because you could look at him and you could see the color of his aura and you can see the expiration date in his field. That must be terrifying if you don't know who you are. These types of things, though, are real despite my belief in it. So even if I don't believe that yogi could tell me when I'm supposed to expire, they could not only point to that and then say, I don't care if you believe it, it doesn't matter. I could be making it up. But did this, and this happen to you in your life with extraordinary detail? Where are they getting that information from? So Catholicism taught me that was sort of heresy, but I've had to go on a journey. My first wife did me a serious favor. When we were 17 years old, we got married when I was 23, like 2 weeks after my 23rd birthday. I was a baby, 25 years ago. And when we were 17, she was Jewish, I was Catholic, and she said to me, so hang on, your religion teaches that if I'm not Catholic, I won't be saved. My soul won't be saved. Do you think you might want to question some of what you've been taught or how it's been taught to you? Not that the scripture is wrong, but maybe the interpretation is not wholly correct. WHOLLY. wholly correct. And perhaps in its misinterpretation, it's not as sacred or holy, Holy, as some people believe. She did me an incredible service that completely confused me for a long time. So I went on a journey. And that journey took me to a number of things, one of which was finding out that the Tibetans, the Buddhists, have it the closest to the truth. And the truth is there are multiple lifetimes, whether or not people want to believe that or not. The problem that was the way it was delivered to me in Catholicism is that Catholicism was like, no, the person's never reborn. That's actually true. The person is not. You made a statement 10 minutes ago, this vessel that houses the soul. It's the soul that is rebirthed, not the person. The person is finished, done. The vessel, the body, it's nature. And nature reproduces itself. So the body will decay. It will go back to the earth, the forest, for another tree to sprout. But Einstein said that once energy is created, it cannot be destroyed. Oh, so we change forms. Liquid to gas, liquid to solid, solid to liquid. So I've been shown, and this made a lot of sense for me. I've been shown, and not only did it make sense, it completely changed my life. If you think of a soul's journey as a pizza pie, that's the soul, is the pie. But each lifetime, one might have more pepperoni or meat or cheese or sauce. One might have bubbles. They're different. Those are expressions of the soul. So each personality, each lifetime, you could be Elizabeth one lifetime and Gavin the next. And those are all expressions of the soul, that the soul goes on a journey to say thank you for the breath. So in your breath, how can you say thank you to your creator? And by creator, I don't mean that there's any one particular instance that's correct. Like, there's some guy in the sky with a long beard and a staff with a white robe. Great. If your God happens to be, as I said on our first podcast, a cardboard cutout of Mike Tyson, and I refer to the television show Friends because Phoebe once had a cardboard cutout of Evander Holyfield, and in that particular episode, that was her God, so to speak, right? Something that she looked up to. And I sort of mean, like, there's no wrong way of doing it. That's the one thing that I think the Mars company, Reese's peanut butter cups, they got right. There's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. There's no wrong way to be spiritual. I just invite anyone who might be watching this to ask themselves, who am I? Why am I here?
Yeah. That answer's not going to drop very quickly.
Until it does.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hang on, this was an overnight success.
Yes.
People say that about Ed Sheeran, and they don't realize that the kid, was playing guitar 14 hours a day from age 4. Then he went to America, left his home. He was living in his car, playing outside a bar called the Cat's Cradle in LA when he was discovered by Jamie Foxx. And he didn't even know who Jamie Foxx was. That's how God operates. And so was he an overnight success? He didn't even know that Jamie Foxx was, as I understand it, he didn't, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is accurate. He didn't even know that Jamie Foxx played Ray in the movie about Ray Charles, And that's because Jamie went to Juilliard. He played the piano and sang. And he had a studio in his house. And so did Ed become an overnight success? Eventually. Did Bruce Springsteen? Eventually. You too? Yep. Eventually. Until you become an overnight success, you go on a journey of what success may or may not mean to you.
But did Ed know who he was?
He knew who he was.
He was living his life from that place.
Yeah. So whether he had, my understanding is, and obviously I'm not sitting here with Ed Sheeran, but I feel like I'm sitting here to some degree with Ed Sheeran, speaking in truth about who he is. And I think he knew who he was, whether he was in his car outside a bar or he was on a stage at Madison Square Garden in front of 27,000 people, or on a pitch with 80,000 people around them, Wembley.
But the point is, he allowed himself to be who he was instead of being pulled in a different direction by peers or parents or society.
Yes. And once he knew who he was, his polarity pulled him in that direction. So I again, we're talking about a celebrity as if he's my best friend right now, right? But I believe that once he knew who he was, that Wi-Fi signal, it's not Wi-Fi, it's why I am. And it's like into the field, and the field goes, and so it's like, I am this. I am a performer. Yes, you are. And if you know it with all of your being, there's nothing that's going to stop you from getting on that ship. Nothing, except your karma.
So why do so many people not know who they are? Or believe that they don't know who they are?
I'm going to answer that with first, I don't know for sure. But what I think I've come to understand about that is probably because, at least what I've seen in coaching people, is that the programming of our ancestors is so strong because love is so strong, and it's the undercurrent that it acts as the glue that keeps family lineage intact. We do not want to discredit the ones who've loved us before. And so the pull from the two polarities, who I am versus who I thought I was that they taught me, clashes. And until we're ready to create some distance for a moment to see who we are despite our ancestry, it's hard to really take a solid look at the self, because we identify with the external world, which I believe, this is my journey. Anybody watching this, if this is not your journey, please just, toss this out, But I believe lifetimes bring us back to discover how attached we've become to the external world, to eventually semi-detach from that, still have the experience and enjoy it, but in a way that we offer the experience back to that which created us, whatever we believe that to be, cardboard cut out of Mike Tyson, whatever. And when we use our breath to offer gratitude and service, we become a light so bright that it attracts moth to flame. Just by the nature of Ed Sheeran, by the nature of who we are, Wembley Stadium, moth to flame. He's the flame on the stage playing his music, A-Team, and somebody comes up and they come up thinking, why is he A and why am I Z? Well, maybe he just finally had the experience of recognizing who he is. I don't know.
And then at times we need to lose that in which we are attached to realize our attachment to it. For example,
lose it. That's interesting.
Well, for example, the experience that comes to my mind is when I lost my job and how I lost myself throughout that process, where I felt as though I was of no value unless I was employed, or unless I was providing, unless I was on the career ladder.
What was your job?
I was in retail management at the time.
Doing what kind of work specifically?
Managing staff members, managing the shop. What
was the retail that you were selling?
It was sports clothing equipment.
Okay. And how did you get into that?
Well, the surface level answer would be that my options were limited at the time, because I came out of college and jobs were scarce in the field that I wanted to move into, which was gym and leisure centers, and had multiple interviews with different places recruitment consultants as well. I had a lot of recruitment consultant interviews.
Okay.
Didn't pass any of them. And this job came up as a trainee manager in Dublin. And I thought, okay, look, it's not exactly what I'm looking for. But, you know, it's still got to do with sports, still got to do with working with people.
Sure.
So it started from there.
So would you say that you settled for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was the closest thing to a match that you thought in the moment you could find.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the echo from the field was that was coming back from your belief systems. Okay. So what did you believe when you lost that job?
I mentioned that sometimes we need to lose that in which we're attached to realize our attachment to it. So in the sense of when I lost the job, and I was later fired from 2 more jobs after that, and realizing that I feel like I'm nothing or nobody unless I have this external source or this external force in order for me to feel as though I am a man of value.
Yeah.
So I need this in order for me to feel
I need this label, this thing. What gives the label power?
Our belief system.
Correct. For example, if we'll use Europe as an example because we're in the UK. So if everyone, not just everyone watching this podcast or listening to it, but if everyone in the UK stopped believing in the euro right now and stopped using it, it would have 0 value. So how did we achieve the belief in the value of the label? Collective belief, but it's what our ancestors gave us. It's no different, right? So eventually what came down the pipeline for you was value in a retail job because that's what was there to be taken. By what or who? A belief system that was entrained in you that you eventually took on as your own and believed was true. And if you go into spiritual coaching in the field that I'm in with you, for example, and you were to take men or women down this path, that eventually there's a technique called tracking that I would eventually teach someone if they've been doing this work long enough. Because as you said to me multiple times today in various conversations, when you start flexing different muscles in the spiritual gym, muscles like acceptance, discernment, awareness, allowance, those muscles get worked really hard. Like people that are in really great shape go to my wife's yoga class and go, I got my ass handed to me, because they're using muscles that they're not used to using. As you know, when you go to the gym, you can work out different muscle sets, right? So eventually what happens is if you start to train those muscles differently, you get a different set of circumstances, a different outcome. So it's no different in the spiritual work or the spiritual gym of becoming something more. You just have to work a different set of muscle groups. And tracking is one of the most powerful, valuable tools that I have in my toolkit. The first one, of course, the most powerful being the breath. Without the breath, I don't have any resources. It's the most powerful arrow in my quiver. So I pull a breath first, always, and I shoot the breath into a situation, and it usually helps me to settle or relax it. However, tracking, like when you can eventually, I learned tracking. We're going to use this for your retail job in a moment. But when I used tracking for the first time and I realized how powerful it was, my mother used to take me to a department store in the United States called TJ Maxx or Marshall's. Marshall's was the place where everyone would get the deal on trendy clothing and name brands. but that were strewn about, thrown on the floor, whatever. There was no sense of organization in these stores whatsoever. I'd find like women's apparel in the men's section, because it's just thrown all over the store. But I'd go in there a happy-go-lucky kid, 4 or 5 years old, and come out like a raging animal because I was picking up on other people's stuff. And I didn't know that I'd gone into a space as a happy child without protection, without knowing to protect myself, walking into a space and picking up on lack. I'm not worth it. I can't get what everybody else has. I have to be left with this. And I'd come out a wreck. And then my mother, smacking me around going, would you get in line? And that was what her mother taught her, and her mother taught her, and her mother taught her, that eventually got passed down to me. And so I grew up believing there was something wrong with me, as opposed to, oh, I'm just very sensitive, whatever. Well, when I tracked it back to, oh my God, I'm a sensitive, that's what was actually going on. Oh my God, I was shown that this is the only ticket in town, so I've got to punch it to get somewhere. Of course it's going to fall apart if that's not your wish. It has to. Even if you're in the job for 40 years, it has to fall apart. And falling apart might be depression for 40 years. The slow dissipation of attaching to something that isn't actually yours. In the States, they say that we have, two political parties. Not that I do not want to get into politics, but two political parties, Democrat and Republican. And most children grow up one or the other because their parents were. But do they actually understand, if you track back what each means and how did this start? Where do my beliefs come from? What do I actually believe? Am I just voting my parents' vote when I walk into the booth? If you are, great. But if it's not great for you, you might be better off not even voting. Why? Because do you know what your vote might be doing? And if we become better at taking responsibility for our own lives, not to make this Ed Sheeran rich today, but he knew. I happen to know for a fact that he knew exactly who he was. That's why I use him as an example. He knew exactly who he was. Because he knew who he was, he became who he was. Most people are walking around not knowing who they are. And I imagine if any of them are watching this podcast, they might be going, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Or, I know who I am. If there's anger there, you might not. Mm-hmm. If there's no anger there and you're going, yeah, I know who I am, good for you. Where can I sign up for your workshop? I'd like to come sit in your presence for an hour. Even if I don't learn something new, I'll be sitting in the presence of someone else who knows a little bit more who they are, that might lead me to doing the exact same thing, because my goal would not to be becoming you, but to becoming more me. And if I sit in the presence of another bright light as a moth, I grow my own flame. Mm-hmm. And that is what I believe the purpose of lifetimes is, to come and be and understand more and more and more who we are. But first, as you said to me earlier today, more truth will set you free, right? It might piss you off first, because
hence the anger.
Because anger is nothing more than an unmet desire. Always. Mm-hmm. This is an unmet desire. How does it accumulate and garner steam? You're 4 years old, you go with your parents to the carnival, and you're leaving. Your parents are tired. It's the end of the day. You've been on all the rides. You've seen all the stuff. You've had all the candy, and you see a big round lollipop, colorful, and you want it. And your parents are like, no, we need to leave. You've had enough sugar for the day. You're already high. You're bouncing all over the place. We're going. And you're disappointed. And then they're pulling you away from the stand with the lollipop. And now you're becoming sad. And they're pulling you even further away. And you're becoming frustrated. Now they're putting you in the car and you're irritated. And if your irritation isn't met with something that's satisfying, like a lollipop, now you're becoming angry, or anger is rising in you. And if anger isn't dealt with, two things will occur. One of two things. Depression, which is internal rage, or rage, which is external. It all started with disappointment. And usually it's like this. But what I've just shown you, tracking. When did this start? When I didn't get the lollipop. I was fine until that moment. Everything was just dandy. And then all of a sudden you didn't get something that you wanted, gone. But until you're present in your breath, until you're allowing your feelings, accepting your feelings, discerning your feelings, you can't even get to tracking. Forget it. So what do I teach people over the first 2 years? The first 5 tools: the breath, allowance, acceptance, discernment.
Great. I have so much more to learn here.
But you've been doing it. Like someone said to me once, did you just Miyagi me? And I went, oh, that's brilliant. You know, like Daniel with Mr. Miyagi, you know, he's like, you told me you were going to teach me karate, and all I've been doing is painting your fences and sanding your floors. And he showed, hi, show me sand the floor, show me paint the fence. And next thing you know, he's blocking punches and kicks.
Yeah.
And he's learned karate. He doesn't even know it. So people are getting Miyagi'd in the first 2 years, as long as they can stick out the first 2 years. And then maybe they get to some of the advanced stages. Someone recently said to me, you've got to trust me enough, Ray, to be able to teach this to other people. And I said to them, I do trust you, but you yourself are on a journey too. You know, like, are you at the place where you're ready to take the projection of pointing at one? I've said 60 things on this podcast already that could be really helping someone, or it could be really upsetting someone. Are you in a position to be projected on positively or negatively that will not pull your center of neutral? Because if it does, you become unhelpable for other people. You become a person who is not in a position of discernment themselves, who then becomes a dim light and does not attract moth to flame. And so if you're capable of staying centered enough to help, great. But the depth of this type of work sometimes can upset people. And by the way, that's also helping people. If it upsets them, it's helping them, okay? But they don't necessarily see it that way in the moment. And that's what I meant when I said that to this person. It's not that I don't trust them. It's that the depth of work is so great. Like, you look at yourself, you're doing phenomenal. Like the things that we've been talking about the last year or so. I mean, you're right. You're the same loving, kind being, but you're not the same person. You've changed your person. You've become a brighter light. And people are noticing. People are telling me, they're in my ear saying to me, whoa, wow, he has changed. And I'm like, he's been amazing the whole time. My job is to see him as whole and complete from the beginning and to reflect that to him, because that's the part he's missing. He's missing the reflection. He's not missing that he's a person in the world. He's missing the reflection of perfection. It's a good book title.
Yeah. Perfection is often mistaken, though, and
very much
you have a different idea there of what perfection is.
Yeah, I mean, it's still cliche, but I think you and I both know there's no such thing as perfection, and striving for it is a waste of energy. Perfectly imperfect is the cliche, right? That's what I was getting at, but I think that with practice, you don't get perfect, you get more polish. And I think, at least for me, that's what I'm aiming for in this lifetime, this incarnation, whatever you want to call it, this experience that I'm having as a being on the planet at this time. I tell people, this is a challenge statement, but I tell people, Are you a human being? Or are you a being human?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's still the same, but it's not. If you're being human, then it implies that you've chosen to be here at this time, that your soul has chosen a dimensional reality in time and space. Like we're in a recording studio right now, beautiful space. But it begs the question, who created it? Our incredible producer, Dan, or you and I by our desire to be here? Or all of us, Without his desire, would you and I be sitting here right now? No. So he created an incredible, beautiful space. By our desire, we get the opportunity to experience it. And this is in spirituality, they say the statement is we're all one. This is a perfect example of that. And you bringing your forest right here to the table.
Yeah.
Dan's
going to love having been used as an analogy for God. Yeah. Dan is the creator and we are enjoying the creation. Yes.
Right. But seriously, like he created a beautiful space. But if it was not for the desire of three beings to bring this beautiful space to the world in this way, your podcast would not be showing Dan's space. My audience that follows me would not be seeing me in this way. This is actually how the world works.
Mm.
And that's why I asked the question, are we human beings or are we being human? If we're being human and we're utilizing the human vessel to experience more and be of service, our echo signals the field for beauty to come in various ways. This is it right now. This is you and I being present.
Enjoying the creation.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. Present. Pre-sent. What I'm being right now is affecting what's becoming 5 minutes from now. It's pre-sent into my future. Is there a future? No, there's just now.
Yeah.
And now, right? And I'm sending that with who I am now. In every now moment, when you look at the word now in the mirror, you've got WON. I've won. So I tell people, is there time? Yes, if you're limited. Otherwise, if you look in the mirror, there's emit. And you become the signal that sets up your present future called the present. It's funny how words, meaning gets lost in words because they're so often used in the wrong way. So the more present we become, the more the filters of distraction fall away, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've mentioned using some of those words in the mirror, and you've mentioned knowing ourselves. And to know ourselves is, again, this is my idea, that you need to see yourself, but you can't see yourself the same way as your eyes can't look at themselves. So we see ourselves through the mirror of other people. And sometimes we don't like what we see. Sometimes we see ugliness and we see distortion and we see anger and rage or disappointment or sadness or shame. But it's a mirror back to our own beliefs and our own identity and our own...
100%. It could be argued or debated. No need to argue. It could be debated amongst the most brilliant of minds that outside of this room. It could be debated that if you're living your life through the mirror of the external world, it's always a distortion. The game telephone, where I tell you something, you tell Dan tell someone else, right? Eventually comes back around and it's like, I started out saying how much I love this teacup, right? And next thing I know, someone's saying, the color of my sneakers or whatever, or so it's like, it's always being filtered through the lens of the receiver, who then becomes the teller or the amplifier of what's been told or what they perceive has been told. And so if you're always living from the outside, this person says you're the best thing since sliced bread. This person says you're worthless. I have a spiritual teacher who has said to me, don't buy into either one. And then you're living what the Buddhists call the middle path. Neutrality. Yeah. And that's the way home. It doesn't mean not to experience the high of highs. My spiritual teacher is also a great fan of football, American soccer, and I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that you're like for a team. And he's like, I'm human. And it's like that simple. He's just not as attached as I am. He's having the experience. Like the difference between he and I is he could have millions of dollars. He's just not attached to it. And certainly not the way I'm attached to it. The way I was attached to it, like fame, fortune, running after a promise that type of thing brings. Whereas he's building hospitals that do, open heart surgery for free for people that can't afford it. 100 bedrooms with the money I gave him for a retreat. And he's living on 5% of it. He's giving away 95% of the income to make the world a better place. And then turns around and says to me, we did that, not I. And I'm like, no. I'm still attached to the money. I'm still attached to fame and name. He's like, yes, but when you can move into we, you can energize your signaled echo from the field into we did this. I'm no longer attached in the same way. And I'm like, oh my God, that's profound.
How do we know if we're attached? For somebody listening to this who's got their career or high-flying CEO or director of a company and has their beautiful mansion and home and family and friends.
Imagine your life without it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you know if you're attached. What if you didn't have that title? What if you didn't have that home, that car, that family, that wife, that child? And there's different forms of attachment. Wanting to ease the suffering of humanity is an attachment. That's a higher attachment than the new car, unless you're easing the suffering of humanity in that car. Like there are spiritual teachers who drive around in Mercedes because of name and game. And I would say they're not that spiritual, actually. They're just playing a game. And they do
of naming and game?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
In other words, there are some spiritual teachers who I see wearing Rolexes and driving Mercedes. They're not doing it to ease the suffering of humanity. They're doing it to show what spirituality can do. That's not what spirituality can do. That's what name and fame can do.
Okay.
By using spirituality as the skin that you're wearing, making it look like you're something that you're not. But if I took those things away from them, how attached might they be to the world that they thought was spiritual?
It's like that whole thing of the more you try to own something, the more it owns you.
Yes. I know a particular spiritual teacher who, it's a great story. I was on a retreat with this person and I might have actually, I believe I was physically on this particular retreat where this thing happened, where apparently a student tried to buy the teacher, but the student didn't know that that's exact, or maybe they did know, then maybe that's why the teaching came, but they gave the teacher, I won't say the location because then everyone will be going there to try to find it, but they gave the teacher a gift. Pardon me. And the teacher said, "Thank you so much. Do you want me to open it now?" And she was like, "Yes, open it now." And they open it, and it's a Rolex. It's like a $50,000 Rolex, laden with, diamonds and sapphire face and the whole nine. And the teacher goes, "This is mine. I can do anything I want with this." The student goes, "Anything you want." He goes, "Awesome." And they were standing next to a glacial lake, and he threw it right in the middle of the lake. And the student, "What are you doing? Oh my God, you know how much that costs? Blah, blah, blah." You said I could do anything that I want with it. You can see, I've just got this Timex. It works perfectly. Yep. It works perfectly well. Still, I don't need that watch, but should I need it, I know exactly where it is now, and I'll go out for a swim and I'll grab it. Thank you very much. I mean, you said it's good to 30 meters. It's only 10. So it's like, how you're attached is, if I take it away from you, how will you respond?
He wasn't taking the watch away, though. He was taking the attachment to the teacher away. Was it?
I believe the teacher was taking away the belief that you could buy spirituality.
So the intention behind the watch was?
In time, I'll have you in my pocket.
That was the intention of the gift.
I'll own you in time.
Okay. Then he threw time away.
Yeah. Now you can't own me.
This is irrelevant.
That's irrelevant. Yeah. If time doesn't exist,
yeah.
or it's frozen in a lake, in a glacial lake. Now what? What a great,
even for the teacher to be able to throw away a 50,000 euro watch or whatever it was. Say, yeah, so what?
So what?
Yeah.
I've met people that literally could wave their hand and fill the underside of an 85-foot bridge with 3 arches with 100 euro bills. But the reason they won't is because they know tomorrow humans will break it again. Humans have to fix this human world that we've created of greed and lust and everything else. And the only way to do that is by becoming more present to what is. And if we're living in time, we can't be present because we're distracted by the tick, tick, tick. I know someone who recently, I was talking to him last week, and he was wearing a watch. And I actually said to him, I said, that's a nice watch. And he's like, "I've only just gotten it. I rarely ever wear it." I'm like, "Oh, but you're wearing it at a spiritual retreat. Why?" And within 30 seconds, the watch come off. It's been placed on the side. And I could nearly watch the attachment to time just melt away, and the growth in the individual already beginning to rise. And I'm like, isn't that like amazing? That's when when you have an experience like that, facilitating a space for someone else, that's how you know God is present. Because it's not you doing anything. You're witnessing. So, okay, am I doing the witnessing? I don't know, actually. I don't think so. I think God is witnessing through me and showing me his witnessing. And that's where gratitude, like, you're even giving me the opportunity to witness you at work. Like, that's just like, mind blowing, kind of thing.
You've mentioned the power of being present several times in this podcast, but so many people would struggle to simply close their eyes and be present for 1 minute. Is that where they start?
Did they struggle, or did they just watch 45 minutes of this? If you're watching somebody talk about presence and the person you're watching is being present, you're actually being present. So did they struggle? I challenge the belief that they actually struggle to be present. The question is, can they be present in the presence of something that irritates them?
Mm.
And why does it irritate them? But if they've been present with something like this for 40 minutes, an hour, whatever, chances are it resonates with them and they've been more present than they realize. But what was your question? What was the actual question?
Their struggle to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
If somebody's struggling to be present, the first thing that I usually say to them is, could you take a breath with me right now for 3 seconds? This is what it looks like. Start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that will change your whole life, starting with this moment. And the more often you can do that, I mean, literally, if you could do that once a day for 21 days, that will bring a lot more awareness into your life. Just that. But I can pretty much tell you that the majority of the population of the planet doesn't do that daily. And because of that, we've forgotten who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It literally, we don't have to overcomplicate it. It's that simple. We've talked about karma. We've talked about past lives. We've talked about, Catholicism, the way it was delivered. We've talked about presence and time and frequency. We've talked about emitting signal to field. We've talked about so many themes here, and the depth is deep. But if you could just take a breath, we've talked about those things today to show you that if you take a breath, you have access to those things in a much more profound way.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you too.
Brilliant conversation. So for anyone who wants to reach out to you, potentially work with you in the future, where's the best place to get you at?
Well, I think Gavin has my contact details. However, if you want to get in touch with us directly, info@rayrolando.com or info@elevate-well.com.
That's the email address?
It's the email address as well as the websites. There's also two, each of them are websites. Elevate-well.com is the business that I run with my wife, Colby. And rayrolando.com is my own website. Yep.
Brilliant. I'll add those links below, people, so go and check them out. And hope you enjoy this conversation. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you very much
for your presence.
Thank you very much.
Until next time. Thank you.